Hello, everyone, and welcome to this short workshop on managing anxiety over the festive period. My name's Hannah, and I work for the NHS, and I also work within student services.
Hello, I'm Ben, and I work in the NHS and Student Services as well. So, start off by thinking about what anxiety actually is. It's a term we use a lot, but it'd be really helpful to start off with a definition. So, anxiety is a feeling of unease, like worry or fear, that can be mild or severe. Everyone feels anxious from time to time, and it usually passes once a difficult situation is over. So, anxiety can be really helpful for us. We need a little bit of anxiety in our lives so that we can respond to things appropriately. But sometimes that feeling can get a little bit out of hand and maybe be more worried about things than we need to be. So, our body responds to anxiety by going into a fight, flight, or freeze response. So, when our body thinks there's a threat, like an animal that could attack us or needing to move out the way of a car, we'll send adrenaline through our body. Our heart might beat quite quickly. Our breathing will go faster, and we'll respond as if we need to either fight something to protect ourselves, to flight, which means to run away and protect ourselves, or to freeze, to stay still and hide. So that's why when we feel anxious about things, our body can respond in that way, our heart beating fast, for example. But sometimes we might respond that way when feeling anxious about something like speaking in front of crowds or going to public spaces. So even though this response is built to protect us from things, it can happen in other situations as well.
So, why might we be anxious? So, if we think about situations that occur now, it might be that we're anxious because we're thinking about the future. It might be that there are pressures in our lives. We might be reflecting on how we behave around others, or we might be imagining worst case scenarios. So, anxiety is often made worse by our normal instinct to think about the future, whether that's short term or long term. It becomes a mental state of apprehension about what might or might not lie ahead. We might be thinking about our college work, exams, health, relationships, jobs, money, or just the general state of the world. This can all be anxiety provoking, and it can be triggered by events in the world, such as an upcoming doctor's visit, something happening in our relationships, money pressures, or it could be just generated internally through our thoughts of real or imagined threats, such as contemplating getting bad grades at college. Um, and anxiety can be increased at this particular time of year too, as we move into the festive period. Okay, so we've got some famous faces here, and performance anxiety is one thing that certainly can affect students. It's experienced more often by those in occupations that involve presenting to an audience, such as actors, musicians, politicians, and students. So you're certainly not alone in feeling anxious about your work or about college. Okay, so there are many reasons that you might feel anxious over the holidays, as that's the period that we're now in. Um, and there certainly is an expectation that it's the happiest time of year, and that in itself can make us feel more anxious. There's also the expectation that you might um, be doing certain things. It reminds you of some lost loved ones. There's an increased pressure to socialize. There's the pressure of buying and spending, feeling like you should, or have to socialize with people that you may not want to socialize with. You might be worrying about being out of your routine. You might already be thinking about next term at college, thinking about coursework and exam prep. So, all these different things can make you feel anxious. But also, you won't be alone in worrying about some of these things. These worries can impact us. Sometimes we can become withdrawn and isolate ourselves and not go out. Other times we can be out all the time or keeping really busy with holiday activities rather than focusing on our work. Both of these things can be seen as forms of procrastination, but it's important that we try and find a balance between managing college work and revision and all our fun activities too. And it's really important that you've got both.
So, approaching the holidays now, what can we actually do to manage these feelings? We're going to run through some now, but a quick overview is tell someone how you're feeling, relaxation techniques, thought balancing, which we'll go over in a moment, creating a schedule or routine, which we'll talk about too, and habit stacking, which is a really useful technique for trying to do new things.
So, who can you talk to? Sometimes it can be difficult to think about who we can and can't talk to. Um, so, it's really important that you do try and talk to people within your network, such as family and friends, whilst you're away from college. But if you don't feel comfortable or feel that you can't speak to them, there are many organisations open over the holidays that are here to listen to you. So on this slide, we've got Couth, we've got Papyrus, we've got Shout, we've got The Mix, Childline, Beat, Together All as well, and the Samaritans. So make sure that you do engage with some of these services if you're feeling low, um, as it's really important that you share those feelings with somebody.
So, thought balancing. Negative thoughts can come to us really easily, and sometimes more easily than positive ones. And those negative thoughts can stick. Sometimes we treat those thoughts as if they're facts. And it can be helpful to think in a more balanced way. When we have negative thoughts, they might be based in some truth. So we don't just want to say, replace those negative thoughts with positive ones, because there might be something to it. So instead of just thinking negative things, we want to balance it out a bit and think about seeing the world in a more balanced way. So we're going to have some examples of how to balance thoughts coming up that you might experience or someone you know might experience. So the negative thought, I'll never get this work done by January. There's a lot to think about in terms of coming back to college, and that pressure can really build up. And this is a thought that can really reoccur a lot for some people. I'll never get this work done by January, and just keep thinking that over and over again, and it's not really helping anything. But a more balanced way to think about that would be, if I break down the work into small bits, it will feel easier to do. So that's a more balanced thought, in that you're not saying there isn't a lot of work to be done, or that there isn't a lot to do when you go back to college, but it's making it more digestible and easier to do, so it feels less intimidating. I'm going to fail, so I won't bother working. There's another thought where things feel like too much and it's hard to know how to manage it. And sometimes we just feel overwhelmed by thoughts like that. And it can be really hard to actually know how to solve our problems. But to balance this out, you could think, I'm worried about failing. So it's acknowledging that there is that worry, but even a little bit of work would help. I can't be bothered to work when I'm not at college. So that's a very common one, I think, of people thinking, well, why do I want to worry about college when I'm worried about college when I'm there already? I'll just try and ignore it. But it could be really helpful to have a think about college and all the work you have to do before you go back instead of ignoring it. So you can think to yourself, it could be harder to work at home, but I can do things to make it easier, like listen to music. So when you're at home, you can actually try and make that work feel a lot nicer for you to do. You don't have to suffer and work in silence. You can listen to music, or you can have regular breaks and really do things however you want to do them. Another way to approach problems that we have is to really think about problem solving and how we can break down bigger problems that feel intimidating and overwhelming into smaller ones. Like Hannah mentioned earlier, procrastination is something that can happen to a lot of people. And sometimes people might have the negative thought that they're being lazy if they're procrastinating. But what we know about procrastination is that it usually comes from people feeling like their problems are too big and they don't know how to solve them, so they just push them off. So instead of feeling like that, we can break down the problem. So let's have a look at how we can do that. Breaking down problems means that instead of having one enormous task to try and tackle, you instead have lots of little ones. So if you broke down all the work that you have to do into smaller bits, every day you can have a go at that, which I hope you can see feels a lot less intimidating than having one big block of work to do. And if that doesn't work, then you can just try it again. It can be really helpful to talk to other people about this and how and to help for you bring it down into smaller problems. Sometimes when there are problems, they can feel like just too big to look at. And getting someone from outside, whether that's a family member, a friend, or a teacher to help, can be really useful.
So, this time of year can be really quite difficult as there's a lot of pressure to make drastic changes in the new year. But it's more important to focus on the here and now and what changes can be beneficial to you moment by moment.
So, the one way to help is by creating a schedule, and this builds off really what we've been talking about making a bit of a plan, making your problems smaller, and tackling the little problems every day just a little bit. So, ways you can do that as a bit of advice would be pick your skip days in advance. Have a think about what days you don't want to do any work, whether that's Christmas Day or maybe a day you want to see your friends, or just a day where you feel like you might need a break. Plan those in advance so you're not giving yourself too much work to do every day. Don't revise what you know. So you don't want to waste time going over the bits that you already know. It might feel more comfortable to stick with those bits, but try and have a look at the bits that are challenging. Don't overdo it. I think this is a really important one. It can be very, very tempting to think, today I'm going to just do all of my work and get it done. But the problem with that is, again, it's too big of a task. It's too intimidating. So just give yourself little bits to do, and it'll be much more achievable and consistent than doing everything, trying to do everything in one go. And finally, make a timetable and stick to it. That timetable is going to look different for everyone. Some people might work better in the morning, some people might work better in the afternoon. So making a timetable and sticking to it will really help you know when you have work to do and when you can relax. And it can also help keep things like your sleep routine in check and to have some routine throughout the holidays as well, because things can really drop off and then it can be much harder to come back to college and be in the routine when you come back. It's also really important when we're talking about all this work to think, what else can we do that feels nice for ourselves? Talking about scheduling things, you can end up thinking about scheduling work or things that you don't really want to do. But make sure you schedule in things that matter to you as well and that you enjoy, because it is, after all, your holiday and you want to make sure you're enjoying yourself.
So, as Ben said, making a schedule is really important. But if you struggle to structure your time, you can try habit stacking. So, habit stacking is basically where you identify one of your current habits and tag on a new habit onto it. So, examples of this could be after I pour my cup of coffee each morning, I will meditate for 1 minute. Um, After I take off my shoes, I will immediately look at my coursework. After I've had my mince pie, I will say one thing I'm grateful for that happened today. After I get into bed at night, I will read my book. After I put on my running shoes, I will text a friend or family member where I am running and how long it will take. So by doing this, it just makes it a bit easier as the new behaviour that you're trying to add to your life just becomes part of something that you are already doing.
So we want to make sure that we're doing things to keep happy. And again, really, really useful resource here, Action for Happiness, which is a website which has some advice about how to schedule in happiness into your week. So here we've got a calendar from them for December with a little thing you can do every day that would feel good for you and the people around you. Being kind to other people isn't just for other people, it also makes us feel good. And here they've got little reminders every day of things you can do. So, for example, one day, share a happy memory or inspiring thought with a loved one. It only takes seconds to do, but it gets you outside of just feeling like you're so in your head or thinking about all the work and the things that you have to do. So they don't just have these for December, they have these for every month. And I'd really urge you to go and check them out. They've got some really cool things there that you can look at and implement in your life, and really nice things for particularly for holidays and December when you're off.
Yeah, so as Ben said, Action for Happiness has some really great resources. And what we've got here now is a self care advent calendar, as that's something that some of us do throughout December, keeping it the theme festive. just thinking of ideas of how you can look after yourself and your well-being as you move through the month. Um, so you've got some ideas here around sort of drawing, doodling, writing. It's just important to remember that it's good to find ways to express yourself and not to keep things bottled up. Yeah, so one thing we can talk about is mindfulness. As when we feel anxious, we need to try and find a way to bring down our heightened emotions and find a sense of calm. The mindfulness is about being in the present rather than focusing on what might be a concern in the future or what might have happened in the past. We can focus on the here and now and the task that's presented to us in the moment because you can only manage what is happening in the present. So, in terms of mindfulness, meditation can be a useful tool to bring awareness to your body, the moment, and to relax. So, what we've got here, just keeping again with our theme, is a guided meditation. This particular one is around a log cabin. I'm not going to play it to you, as this particular one is an hour in length with sort of talking for the first half and then sort of sound effects that are atmospheric, just calm you down for the rest of it. Um, and so yeah, that one that I've pasted there in the corner, um, it could be particularly useful if you struggle with sleep. Um, as the aim is sort of that with these atmospheric noises, you can calm down and fall into a nice sleep once you're in that relaxed state. So do go and check that out on YouTube. Okay. So what we've got in the next slide after this is a breath bubble. So hearing about planning and scheduling and things to do around college and your time can be a challenge in itself. So to slow down and prepare yourself for that planning and scheduling, something you can do quite quickly and easily is a breath bubble. And hopefully that can put you then in the best mindset, relaxed and calm, ready to do your work or enjoy the holiday. So here is the breath bubble, and you're just going to follow the instructions on the screen. So you just breathe in and out along with the bubble. Just breathing in and out. So as you can see, it's very quick, something very easy, um, just to be more in touch with your breath, to bring down those heightened emotions and help you focus. And it's easily available on YouTube as well. And most of all, we just hope that you really enjoy your holidays and enjoy the period off away from college, and that you come back to college rejuvenated and ready to take on the new year.